Kill me! I'm here! Kill me!
Hey everybody, this is Matthew Movies coming at you with my review of A Nightmare on Elm Street, the 1984 horror classic that you may be thinking to yourself, what is the point of reviewing this movie? I mean, who doesn't know about A Nightmare on Elm Street? And you know, to that I'll say this: I actually think that there's a bit of a disconnect with some people about this movie. A lot of people look at Freddy Krueger and they base their kind of opinions on him on some of his later films where he gets more comedic, and you know, like in Freddy's Dead, where he's got the power glove and sillier stuff like that. And you know, obviously this is mostly going to be the kind of horror novices that are going to think those things. But if people go back and watch the original A Nightmare on Elm Street, this movie is terrifying. It's far scarier than almost any other horror movie out there, in my opinion. I honestly think it's one of the best horror movies ever made. It just barely missed out on my recent video on my top 10 horror movies of all time, because I think this movie is just so frightening. Like the idea of a being that can kill you in your sleep, like that, what can you do? Like in the movie that you see, that like in the series you always see people, like, you know, taking caffeine pills or drinking coffee or doing anything they can to try to get so that they won't fall asleep and have a dream. You know, in later movies they take drugs that are supposed to have it so that you know, you'll have dreamless sleep and all that kind of thing. And it's really true. Like when you really think about it, if there was a being that could take your life in your sleep, there was really pretty much nothing you can do about it. And that in and of itself, the concept of it is very scary. And then the actual movie itself, the way they set up, like the one moment where you have the one girl who falls asleep and she's like flying through the air, and you got the cuts coming up, and like when he does like this with its arms and they stretch out, and like the hanging and the being sucked down into your bed and the blood coming out, like that's a goofy scene in a lot of ways. When you look back on it, if you look at that scene in kind of a vacuum and just watch it in and of itself, you know, it's pretty silly. The way they did it was pretty obvious, and that amount of blood, it's ridiculous. But within the context of the movie, it's freaky as all get out. And then like the last sequence at the end where with the door and the car again, and in and of itself would be a scene that you could kind of laugh at. And you know, as somebody who has seen that sequence, the effect of the person being pulled back in is pretty silly, but at the same time in the movie you don't feel that. And like the way that they set up the world of the dreams, where, you know, like there's the moments where people are walking and they're sinking into the carpet and that kind of stuff, like where they make it so that pretty much anything is possible. And you know, you could be thinking that you're getting away, but really you're lowering yourself into his trap because he's playing with you. And then like down to like the opening shot of the movie where it's in like the factory or water place or whatever the hell it's called, but you know what I mean. Like, and like the sound design of like when he runs his blades on steel and stuff like that, it is freaky. It really gets to you on like a visceral level. And then like everything down to even like the classic song, the, you know, 1 2 Freddy's coming for you. Like the stuff that they came up with in this movie is just so cool. And one of my favorite tidbits about this movie actually isn't anything that you see on screen, but yeah, I watched a documentary once where they were talking about this movie and how Wes Craven got the idea. And you know, he had read some article about some kids who were consumed with the idea that if they fell asleep they would die, and then they died. That in and of itself is kind of cool. I don't know what the validity to that is, but he also he told this story about where he was up one night and he was writing and he was working, and you know, like you do, he kind of looks out the window and there's like kind of like a transient walking by, and he looks out and the guy looks up at him, and he happened to be wearing a similar sweater to the one that Freddy Krueger wears in the movie, and same kind of hat. And when the guy looks up at him, he doesn't want him knowing that he was watching him, so he ducks down away from the window so that the guy will pass on and not realize, hopefully, that he was looking at him, or at the very least the awkward moment would dissipate. And he waits a few minutes and he thinks, you know, he's got to be gone by now. And he looks out the window and the guy's staring up at him. And that idea in and of itself is super freaking creepy. Everything about this movie, like from beginning to end, I think is just perfection. I absolutely adore this movie. I really don't understand if you're a horror fan and you don't enjoy this movie, because everything about it to me is just done to the nines. And you know, as I'm sitting here discussing it, I'm just like, I should have put it in my top 10. I should have put it in my top 10. But you know, c'est la vie. I absolutely adore this movie. It is the beginning of one of my all-time favorite horror franchises. I think Freddy is by far my favorite horror villain, even though he does have some pretty crappy movies in the franchise, for sure, in my opinion. But you know, just based off the strength of this movie alone, and then some of the really interesting kills that happen in the rest of the series, I'll never not have a place in my heart for Freddy Krueger. And I just absolutely think this movie is somehow, it actually, I think, is underrated. Even though, you know, it is definitely seen as a classic, and I think is always in the conversation of the best horror movies within the community of true horror fans. I think outside of it, the perception of this movie is one that is far too wrapped up in its sequels, and that's a shame, because this movie is incredible. So those are my thoughts on A Nightmare on Elm Street. Let me know in the comments below if you think it is one of the best horror movies of all made, as I do. If you think I'm giving it too much credit, what have you, please hit that like button. It does awesome things for my channel. And please subscribe if you're new here. I absolutely love talking to you guys about movies. It means the world to me when you subscribe. And while you're at it, hit that notification bell so that you get to see my stuff on a regular basis. Other than that, have a nice day.